Hello all, it's the Old Geek and this is my first read through of 2024. If you look over my right shoulder, not sure how it'll appear on the thing, but that's my right shoulder, you'll see it's a wonderful day here in Britain. It's absolutely hammering down outside and yeah, wonderful way to start the year. Typical British weather, but we have got a British magazine to look at here. This is White Dwarf from December and January 1978 into 1979. White Dwarf was still bi-monthly at this point and was costing 60 pence, which was effectively the same now as Dragon was costing in America. So directly comparable. Issue number 10, and on the cover you see we have got what looks like an old fortress on the top of a bleak rocky outcropping and a spaceship up above. So are we into the sci-fi here? It's not a bad cover. The covers in for White Dwarf are generally better than Dragons at the moment. Dragons covers are improving. In this issue, we've got Lightsword, Talisman of Techum, and Traveller. Why are they spelt Talisman? I'm wondering about that. Okay, let's scroll through, shall we? Big Chaosium advert. Mostly RuneQuest, and yeah, RuneQuest is the big one at this time. Phoenix Model Developments, The Lost World of Atlantis. Now look here, I'm seeing a bit of a forward step. I don't know how big these models are, but if you look at the detail and the realism, I'm not just the fact that you've got that near naked woman looking quite authentic on the right hand side. They are quite expensive. Look at the prices of these. I wish I knew what the sizes were because that would give me a clue, but there's a lot of realism there. I do apologise if you hear a lot of noise from outside. When it's wet, there's a lot of road noise from cars going past. I mean, this green wooden ball is more likely the more common prices. So you've got things like 50p for a man goblin with a lance and bow riding a giant lizard beast. And these more expensive ones are 54mm, so twice the height. So I'm wondering if these are 54mm ones as well. In which case, that'll be why they look more detailed. Anyway, I'm not an expert on miniatures. I will say that now. Let's look at the prices. Hardback Player's Handbook, £6.95. Monster Manual Hardback, £6.95. Yeah, I think that's about... When I started playing in '83, you were talking between £9 and £11 for the hardback books. With the exchange rate as it was then, that's the equivalent of about $20 to $25. I don't know what they were over where most of you chaps are at that time, but let me know. So, let's see what we've actually got in here. Talismans, right. Cover, Talisman of Techum. Now we've got Talismans of Techum. Now, I always assume the plural of talisman to be talismans. I might be wrong. We've got Fiend Factory, Treasure Chest, Traveller. Okay. Sci-fi dueling game. I'm not overly excited by this issue, but we'll see what we got. With the flattering news from Scott Bizarre of Fantasy Games Unlimited that Games Day 4, with an attendance of 2,500, ranked number 2 in the world after Origins. Yeah, it shows how things have grown. I mean, UK Games Expo is now 10 to 15 times the size of that. And we've got bigger. There's one in Germany, a board game one in Germany, which is bigger. Gen Con's bigger. Yeah, well, it's a growing hobby. Certainly grown in the last few years. Talismans of Techum. Right. This is Empire of the Petal Phone, isn't it? So I know nothing about it. Looks like these are magic items that you could convert them to D&D, couldn't you? Quite easily. The potent pambooties of prehistory. Nice bit of alliteration there. That's quite good. The girdle of abstinence. Look like a chastity belt. The magic cleaving blade of Terwabi. Okay. The steel sash of strength. The raging gauntlet of the jewelers of Shamash. Some good names. Right. Fiend Factory. What have we got here? They've still got monster marks, which is a pain in the backside. But I will try to ignore. No, I'm going to get annoyed by it continually, aren't I? Blink skeleton. That's a skeleton that can do what blink dogs can do. Inverse monster. Anyone who misses it actually hits, and anyone who hits it actually misses. So, and if it misses you, it actually hits. And if it hits you, it actually misses. So these inverse monsters are really, really bad at fighting a magic user with a dagger. It's the best way of taking out an inverse monster. Much better than a 10th level fighter. It's just silliness. It's just comedy, isn't it? A Mimble. Found jumping into walls, stuffing red hot coals into its mouth, or clubbing itself with a handy iron bar. It suffers from extreme masochism. Oh, right, okay. Okay. And the editor's comment, I'm at a loss for words with this one. It's one of the few monsters which has raised a loud laugh on reading its characteristics. So it regenerates up to 8 hit points per round, even if after it's killed, so it's entirely indestructible. And it enjoys getting stabbed. It doesn't attack. It's just a pain in the neck. Familiar? Okay. Sandman. I remember these cropping up. An Eastern skeleton. Bragger. Oh, look at me. I'm so marvellous. He loves to brag at great length about how terribly evil he is. Superb. A warlock cat. That's powerful. Look at that. 7 hit dice. Wow. A daddy. You've got a mummy and you've got a daddy. A daddy is a mutant mummy who was turned out of the pyramid when it tried to wear the trousers and control the purse strings. Right. This is very much a comic episode of the Fiend Factory. This is the British sense of humour coming into play. It's Christmas, so it's just a lot of silliness. And I don't mind silliness as long as it's in well timed, as long as it doesn't take over. In any RPG, you're playing to enjoy yourself, and you've got to have a laugh at the table. So a little bit of silliness, constant silliness, can be a pain in the backside, can be really frustrating. But a little bit of silliness, yeah, can be amusing. Can be amusing. And we can all be silly when we want to be. Competition for tricks and traps. Frozen food. A stall in the dungeon run by an almost invincible monster, for example a 20th level magic user, sells food for extortionate prices. The special offer is deep frozen troll's flesh. The wizard will claim it's beef. Once the meat has defrosted, it starts to regenerate and eventually becomes a whole troll hell-bent on revenge. This could be unfortunate if the adventurers had left it to thaw overnight. Yes, yes. Let's just keep going through. We have, of course, that new version of Grimtooth has just come out, hasn't it? Excuse my voice, I'm croaking a little. New version of Grimtooth has just come out on the Kickstarter. I know a few people have backed it. I didn't back it. It's not my sort of thing, but I do remember the original Grimtooth. Let's look and see who's doing some writing. We've got... Find myself in sympathy with the editorial on the subject of realism. Realism in fantasy games is almost defeating the object of playing them when carried to extremes. Realism is a necessary part of the game atmosphere. I think I agree with this guy, because you've got to have enough realism to have that verisimilitude on which you base your improvisation and you base your logical DMing decisions as to whether something might or might not work. But if you start taking it too far, then yes, it grinds the game to a halt. It ceases to be fun. And the reason we play these games is to have fun. So if there's a choice between realism and speed of play, I will go for speed of play. But if I'm playing a game that's intended to be quite slow, I'm willing to excuse a little bit of clunkiness, as long as it really doesn't get in the way. I mean, for example, I'm running MERP at the moment, and I have said openly on my streams, I'm not going to run MERP again face-to-face at the table, at least not often, because it gives me a headache. But running it online with all the tables largely automated, all the roles are automated. I've got the tables printed out in front of me, so very quick reference. It's still a bit clunkier than running OSE online or Call of Cthulhu, but MERP is a slower paced game, and the players are taking the whole game more slowly. There's a lot of planning, a lot of character interaction. It's a really enjoyable change of pace, and I feel that game needs that sense of realism to make Middle-earth work. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, Roger Musson is writing about realism. Trouble with this realism debate is that too many assume that realism means A, excessive complication, and B, perfectionism. The intention, when people start introducing things associated with realism, I would say the original intention is not to get excessive complication or perfectionism, but that is often the logical result. So, Roger, I disagree. Sorry. Quite often the end result is excessive complication or perfectionism, because where do you stop? Where do you stop? It's like, well, this is logical. If we're doing that, then we need to take into account this, and then we need to take into account this, and it just builds up, and suddenly you've got something that is a lot clunkier than the original rule. So Roger, no, you're wrong there. This is... I'm sorry if your name is Hugh Tonks, but I've just found your name funny. Hugh Tonks. I'm not going to read the way. A lot of people are banging on about the whole realism thing, and people still argue about that nowadays. Games Day, a report by Ian Livingston. This is the one that 2,500 people turned up. Seymour Hall, London. Yeah. Some pictures. Steve Jackson, Albie Fiore, Ian Livingston. Oh, I've got some food in my teeth. Yeah. Light Sword. Okay, this is a game by the looks of things. It looks like it's a sci-fi dueling game. Okay. Still got food in my teeth. I'm not going to go through the rules. It doesn't look like my sort of thing. And we've got boobies. Badly drawn boobies. Whoever drew that, badly drawn boobies. Gamma World. A review of Gamma World. 9 out of 10 from Don Turnbull. There we go. Realm of Yolmi. 2 out of 10. Two opposites there. So yeah, they like Gamma World, and yeah, there he says, I will stick to Gamma World. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. Okay, he's giving it 10 out of 10. In my opinion, it's a great book, but there were a few things in there that really needed to be in a player's book. And I don't mean combat tables and saving throws. I'm quite happy with them being in the DM's guide. One of the key things that was missing for me was encumbrance. You needed all of the encumbrance rules in the player's handbook, in my opinion. You needed things like height and weight of characters. Again, that was in the DM's guide. I would rather have had that in the player's handbook. But the biggest thing for me was encumbrance. Equipment, to find out the weight of rations, to find out the weight of a lantern, a backpack, all that sort of stuff. That's in the DM's guide. Shouldn't be. It's up to a player to roll the character, pick the character's features, race, class, whatever, equip the character, and generate height, weight, however you want to do that, age, however you want to do that. That is purely the domain of the player, and that should have all been in the player's handbook. So for me, the AD&D Player's Handbook, it's a good book, but it's a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Great cover, that. The Manual of Orania. I think it's 4. Oh, it's a reasonable buy for the money, £1.75. It's cheap. There we go. The Experienced Traveller. If you like Traveller, then I'll just pause on this page and I'll just go down a little bit there. There we go. So give people a chance to read it. Again, yeah, if you like Traveller, if that's your thing, you get a chance to read it while I move on. You know what I've been saying about artwork and stuff? I'm not a sci-fi fan, but I can see that this piece of artwork here is better quality than you're seeing in most Dragon magazines at this point, with the exception of Tramp's cartoons. And I'm talking about just pure art quality, though. I like, for example, McLean's little comic strips, because they're funny. But certainly the pure quality of the artwork here looks to be better. Valley of the Four Winds. Is this... Oh, it's fiction. It's fiction. We'll keep going. More boobs. There's a lot of boobs in this. I thought we Brits were meant to be quite stuffy when it comes to things like that. We certainly were in the late 70s and early 80s. No, you can't swear on television before 9 p.m. and certainly no underwear on TV before that time. And no nipples, no! Molten Magic. That's a waste of space. Explained that before as being a waste of space. Contacts. Let's see where we've got some contacts here. Job opportunities at Games Workshop. Games Workshop have the following jobs available. Shop manager. Age between 23 and 40. What's wrong with 22-year-olds? What's wrong with 41-year-olds? Admin assistant. You work in London. Okay. Yeah. I can't apply. I'm too old. And I was too young then. Okay, D&D Northern Central Italy. Italy's... it's for visits. Anyone in Italy for a day or month or a year is welcome to visit the Bologna Chess Club. Okay, so it's not sort of arranging a D&D game and you can be in Northern or Central Italy. There's like, Italy's quite long. It's like, yes, you live in the north of England. We've got a games club in Scotland. If you fancy turning up, it only takes you 4 hours to drive there. Lymington. Oh, it's Hampshire. Is it Lymington? Lymington or Lymington? But no, you pronounce that. Never been there. Manchester. Wanted. Prime requisites and capabilities of Samurai, Alchemist, Healer and Berserker. What? Wanted. Prime requisites and capabilities of Samurai, Alchemist, Healer. Are you making a class and you want people who have worked as a samurai, an alchemist, a healer, or a berserker to let you know what their prime requisites are? That's odd. That's odd. But then it's in Aberdeen, so Scottish. Drunk. D&D Deptford. Deptford down in London. Leprechaun. It's going to be, of course, it's going to be in Dublin. Yes. Good name, Leprechaun. Right. Lots of London stuff. So things are growing. Things are growing. Now open for almost anything. Model Workshop Limited. Oh, almost anything in science fiction and fantasy games. I was a little worried there initially. Largest selection of games in the world. In the world. Game Centre. Right. You know, you have these rules on advertising and false advertising. If you went to Game Centre, did they have the largest selection of games in the world? I mean, anywhere in the world. Very, very bold statement to make. I mean, they might be right. Advert for Games Workshop. Okay, games and puzzles. Right. Okay. So that's the issue. That is the issue. 28 pages. It's now, consistently smaller than the Dragon. Same price. There's a lot of adverts in this. Hell of a lot of it. It felt to me like roughly half the pages in this issue were adverts. I know I'm not a big sci-fi fan and I'm not a big sort of person for fiction. So the things that have taken up the space in this edition are not of interest to me. Empire the Petal Throne, not my thing. Fiend Factory, a little bit of light comedy. Treasure Chest, that's okay. Read Letters, okay. Games Day Report, okay. But then pretty much from... I work out that's 6 pages out of 28 in this edition that are of any interest to me. Half of the magazine is adverts. White Dwarf, I think this is probably your worst issue so far. I'd have been very disappointed. Very, very disappointed. As a nerdy fantasy D&D type, there's very little to appeal to me in here. Shame, because generally White Dwarf has been very good, but issue 10, no. Right, anyway, I've been the Old Geek. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong in the comments below, but until the next one, I suppose I'll see you. Wednesday for a bit of a chat. Friday for some more reading of books, or at the weekend for some gaming on the Discord. You're welcome to take part. Come along, take part in all of them. Until then, see you for now.